So one of the main influences on Montag in the story, one of the main figures who gets him to start to think and question and wonder about what he does, is Clarice. But there's another important influence on him in part one, and that is the woman who dies with her books. She's never given a name, and in a lot of ways, she's like a martyr. A martyr is someone who dies for a cause. Someone who dies for their beliefs. And in a lot of ways, she's like a martyr because she is willing to give up her life for her books. And in doing so, she makes Montag really understand the destructive nature of fire. So her sacrifice makes the destructive nature of fire apparent to Montag. And we see this on two key pages, two key sections, page 34 and pages 47 to 49, where he starts to see the reality and consequences of fire's destructive side, and where he starts to realize he doesn't want to burn and destroy books anymore, because he starts to realize that burning books is burning people. And he's metaphorically awake now to what he's doing. So let's take a look at these important passages. Very bottom of 33, very top of 34. Always before, it had been like snuffing a candle. The police went first, and a piece of tape to the victim's mouth and bandaged him off into their glittering beetle cars. So when you arrived, you found an empty house. You weren't hurting anyone. You were hurting only things. And since things really couldn't be hurt, since things felt nothing and things don't scream or whimper as this woman might begin to scream and cry out, there was nothing to tease your conscience later. You were simply cleaning up. Janitorial work, essentially. Everything to its proper place. Quick with the kerosene. Who's got a match? But now, tonight, someone had slipped. This woman was spoiling the ritual. So this time is different for Montag. This call to this woman's house is very different for him, not only because after meeting Clarice, he's really starting to question things, but because she's there. So this time, the police didn't go first and carry away the suspect. And it's interesting here, the language that Bradbury uses. Now this person is called a victim. Which implies that they are being harmed. They're not the suspect. They're not the criminal, they're the victim. And before, Montag says it had always been like snuffing a candle. So we have this great simile here comparing his job to snuffing a candle, something that's easy. The ease of what he does. And again, it implies the destructive nature of what he does, putting out a candle. And because no one was ever there for him to see the damage, he didn't understand it. Before, you found an empty house, and so it wasn't like you were hurting anyone, he says. You were only hurting things, and things couldn't really be hurt. Now he sees with the woman there that he's not just hurting things, that what he's doing is hurting people. And Bradbury emphasizes this at the bottom of the page with this great comparison being made. He says, the men were hurling shovelfuls of magazines into the dusty air. They fell like slaughtered birds, and the woman stood below like a small girl among the bodies. So we've got two similes here. And in the first, he compares the woman to a small girl. Sorry, that's actually the second. In the other one, he compares the books to slaughtered birds. And both of these emphasize how destructive this act is. That by burning these books, they're not just burning paper, it's as if they're destroying something alive, something beautiful. Comparing them to birds brings up the symbolism of freedom, of hope. And that is what they're killing. Not just killing, but slaughtering. Slaughtering is more than just killing. It's this horrific, destructive form of killing. And by comparing this woman to a small girl, it emphasizes her innocence and her helplessness. And it makes this act seem so much worse than just an old woman harboring dusty old books. And Montag sees it now for what it is. So later that night, when he goes home, we see him react very differently to what's happened. So this is on page 47. He pressed at the pain in his eyes, and suddenly the odor of kerosene made him vomit. Mildred came in humming. She was surprised. Why'd you do that? He looked with dismay at the floor. We burned an old woman with her books. It's a good thing the rug's washable. So we see here Montag is really affected by this woman. He keeps thinking about her. And it makes him sick. He's feeling intense guilt and concern over what he's done. And this is really contrasted to earlier in the novel. Remember when he first meets Clarice and she comments on the kerosene, he says it's nothing but perfume to him. This kerosene that was once a perfume, something sweet smelling to him, now is something that makes him vomit. So we can really see what a dynamic character he is here. Ironically, we can also see what a static character Mildred is here. Her husband has just been sick all over the floor, and her comment is that she now has to wash the rug. Again, she's very selfish and self-centered and superficial. Because Montag is now really understanding the destructive side of fire and really questioning what he's doing, he's considering giving up his job. Mildred, how would it be if, well, maybe I quit my job for a while? You want to give up everything after all these years of working because one night some woman in her books? You should have seen her, Millie. She's nothing to me. She shouldn't have had books. It was her responsibility. She should have thought of that. I hate her. She's got you going, and next thing you know, we'll be out. No house, no job, nothing. You weren't there. You didn't see, he said. There must be something in books, things that we can't imagine, to make a woman stay in a burning house. There must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. Because this woman is willing to burn herself with her books. She makes Montague realize that there must be something important in books, that they must be meaningful. He later says, "Have you ever seen a burned house? It smolders for days. Well, this fire will last me the rest of my life. God, I've been trying to put it out in my mind all night. I'm crazy with trying." He compares this event to a fire he can't put out, conveying the sense that this will always be with him, that he can't forget what he has done, that it has irrevocably changed and affected him. Mildred says, "You should have thought of that before becoming a fireman." "Thought," he said. "Was I given a choice? My grandfather and father were firemen. In my sleep, I ran after them." So, Montague's using a metaphor here. He says, "In my sleep, I ran after him." Now, he wasn't really sleeping when he became a fireman. What he's trying to convey is that it was never a conscious choice. It was never something he thought about. He never thought for himself. But after meeting Clarice, and after seeing this woman, now he's really thinking about his actions. He tells Mildred, "It's not just the woman that died. Last night, I thought about all the kerosene I've used in the past 10 years. And I thought about books. And for the first time, I realized that a man was behind each one of these books. A man had to think them up. A man had to take a long time to put them down on paper. And I'd never even thought that thought before. It took some man a lifetime maybe to put some of his thoughts down, looking around at the world and life. And then I come along in 2 minutes and boom, it's all over." So Montague's really understanding here that fire destroys, and that he is destroying. And he's destroying more than books. He's destroying people. He's destroying ideas. He's destroying beliefs. He's destroying legacies.